Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Anger. And today I have the special privilege of being joined by Masters Olympian, Janine Herrera. Did I say that right? I should
You
have asked.
sure did. You sure did.
Awesome.
Hi.
Well, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you located and kind of like what you do for a living and all that good stuff.
So I'm located in beautiful, sunny South Florida. I'm in Miami. I've been living here for probably over 30 years. I'm an ICU nurse, but I'm actually finishing my graduate degree as a nurse practitioner. So I finish in December. Looking forward to that. Yay.
Yay. Do you have to do clinical hours? My sister graduated with that as well.
I do. I'm actually doing 250 clinical hours right now.
Oh my goodness. And you did prep. And are you still in prep right now?
I'm still in prep. I got back from Romania and I do have a few shows still on the calendar. So I am in prep. I'll probably be in prep, to be quite honest, till the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did listen to your podcast with Naima Chu, and well, now it's not her married name. I forget what that is, but I remember you saying that you were hoping that they would have a Masters Olympia, and they had it. So that's great. Are you still trying to qualify for O,
Of course.
the Open?
Of course. That's that was the ultimate goal until I got my pro card, and then I started wishing for Masters O. But I think even though you qualify for Masters O or you go to Masters O, the Olympia has been around consistently for so long that that's what we all strive towards. Well, most of us. I can't say everyone. Some people just get their pro card and they're like, I'm done, but for me, that would be the ultimate dream, to have gone to Masters O and also to the Olympia. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you and Jess the vet would be the only people that have had that feat happen. No, Carrie Heinrich.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Corinne. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I'll be interviewing. You're the first of the series. So I have interviews with a lot of the top five competitors. So I wanted to hear from you what your experience was going to Romania, what the application process was like for the Masters Olympia as, the first year ever doing that for bikini. And it was 40 plus, correct?
Yes. It was 40 plus. I have to be honest, I was not going to apply. Right. So
Okay.
when they finally did bring it back, even though I had been praying for this, I am somewhat of a realist with myself. Sometimes I'm like, who are you kidding, Janine? Like, there's so many other people they could pick other than you. And so it like got down to the wire. And I said, you know what? The worst they can say is no. Right.
Yeah.
But if I don't try, I'll never know. So I was probably honestly the last application they received.
Oh, wow.
And I sent in my application, was very, very nervous. You had to send in, you could make your application either a resume of what you've done in the industry, you could put together a video. I did both, right? So I put
Okay.
together a video that kind of displayed what my life was like, who I am as a person. And then of course I put my resume of the competitions that I've done, and then just waited with bated breath. And
That's
I
awesome.
remember counting down, and I was telling my coach, Jamie D. Bernard, this many days. And it's funny because the day that they announced it, I was at Powerhouse Gym here in Miami, which is my home gym.
Okay.
And I didn't see my name. So I'm at the gym and all these weights are going and I can't really hear. I'm trying to, see what they're saying, and it's going in and out the service. And I saw the list, but I didn't notice the list said wellness. So
Oh,
looking down this list of names, and
oh gosh.
I'm literally telling Jamie, I'm like, well, we tried. And she's screaming, and I'm like, why are you? She's like, do you see it? I'm like, what? And my phone starts ringing, and then finally I look up and I see my name, and I was in tears. Like
Oh,
I
I
couldn't
bet.
even hold it back anymore, because for me, it's like here I had been on this journey that started off as I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to try it. And now to be chosen for this pinnacle event was just mind blowing. The
Yeah.
whole experience was mind blowing.
Well, I want to hear all about it. And I remember I was interviewing Sandy on the day that they were doing all of the judges were getting together and the panel from Wings of Strength. And, I was asking her about the process. She said, well, we have pictures. We need to look to see, you know, how they placed in previous competitions, how they're looking, what their resume is like, and things like that. So, congratulations on, I don't think the listeners, I don't know if anyone we didn't mention, but you got second at the Olympia, which is incredible considering the fact that you weren't even going to apply. So, how many athletes were there?
So for each division was kind of different. So
Okay.
the allowed amount I think was 20 per division.
Okay.
Bikini actually had so many applicants. There were 21 chosen athletes that
Okay. They
competed for
probably had a hard time.
yeah. Um,
Okay.
and all 21 made it, because I should preface that by saying some people were chosen, but unfortunately not everyone was able to make it in some of the
Okay.
divisions. So yeah, I mean all 21 bikini athletes made it, which was amazing.
So they pay for your
No,
expenses to travel or no?
we paid for our own expenses.
Okay.
I traveled out there with enough time to have 7 days. So
Okay.
I know that I hold water weight when I
Hmm.
travel. Um, sure enough, this was the one time that I didn't. But usually I hold water weight. So we competed on a Sunday. I left Miami the Monday and
Okay.
arrived in Cluj Tuesday. It was just all so surreal, because from the minute I got to the airport, I noticed other people that were athletes. Of course, you're
Hmm.
taking the same flight. By the
Yeah.
time we got to Istanbul, because most people's flight either went through Munich or Istanbul or
Okay.
Frankfurt. I went through Istanbul. We all started talking and getting to know each other. I actually got to know the person who was the Masters figure champion because I spilled water all over her
Oh,
on the
shoot.
flight.
Hopefully not while she was tanned.
No, on the flight. So it was
Okay.
like one of those which was great because on our way back we hung out, the whole time in the airport and stuff. So
That's awesome.
getting there, the whole production, I've never been a part of a production of that scale, of
Hmm.
that size. It was so well presented. Everything ran smoothly. The venue was beautiful. The turnout was great. It was just next level. Just it's what I imagined the O is probably like. Um, Even talking to people who'd been to the O that were there, they were like, it's like this, but of course, maybe just a smidge more turned up, because at the O there's a gala and there's an expo outside. This was
Hmm.
our first Masters O. So I imagine as it goes on, they're gonna work out the kinks and the tweaks, and it's just gonna get better.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it like with the crowd and all of that? Was there much there?
It was nerve-wracking, right? Because you think you're in this foreign country getting out on stage, and who's gonna know you? Like nobody's gonna know you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the crowd was very welcoming, if I could say that. It was the whole country was very sweet. Everybody's very polite. So you came out on stage, and whether they knew you or not, everybody was clapping and cheering. It was really sweet. What surprised me was, of course, you're on stage, so you don't hear the commentary that's going on from the
Right.
commentators, Bill Chigarella, and they. So it was funny because so many people sent me the commentary after of what it was like when I stepped out on stage, and it was just amazing.
What were some of the special things that were said that
So
stood out to you?
when I came out, I guess when I initially came out, I stood out, right? Maybe because of the curly hair, maybe because of the color of my suit, or just my presence on stage. So when I finally came out to do my routine, the commentators were like, wow, she looks amazing. She's like, she stands out. And I was just laughing so much because it's different. It's weird to hear somebody commenting on you.
Yeah. I
It
almost
was
didn't
like,
recognize you with your straight hair right now.
yes, well, Miami has this thing called humidity.
Right, right.
It's just, and it's so funny because this year I actually was not gonna wear my hair curly. It
Okay.
all happened by accident. I was checking in for my first check-in at the beginning of the year in March with Jamie. And I had just washed my hair and I was like, screw it, man. This 5 a.m. check-in's gonna have curly hair in it. And she looked at me and was like, I almost didn't recognize you. Why have you never worn your hair curly before? And I'm like, because I look like a lion. She's like, I think you should try it on stage. And I was
That's
very
beautiful.
hesitant because I felt like only certain people can pull it off, like a Jordan or, Jen Dory. And she's
Hmm.
like, let's try it. It won't hurt. And the feedback from Sandy, my very first show, was keep the curly hair. But
Yes.
when you live in South Florida, 3 days of curly hair, and then you don't know if you're the lion from Wizard of Oz or what's going on.
Well, it's gorgeous, and I love your suit color too. It really pops. Have you always worn the turquoise?
I have not always worn the turquoise. I wore the turquoise my first competition.
Okay.
Um, and it's funny because I wore it my first competition, and Tim Gardner actually said suit color was perfect on me. And for whatever reason, I switched to black for my second competition. And then I went to nationals. I went to North Americans, won my pro cards in red,
Okay.
did my pro debut in like a royal blue. And this year, for whatever reason, I just wanted to return to that initial color.
Yeah.
And I did. Yeah.
It's really rich. It really pops on stage with your skin tone. It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you kind of told us a little bit of your story. So you won your pro card at
At
North
North
Americans?
American. So I began competing shortly after COVID, right?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
being an ICU nurse, I found one of the few gyms that was open,
Hmm.
um, and started working out. The owner was like, have you ever thought of competing? And I thought, okay, well, I do want to give this a chance. I actually went there with the idea of trying to compete. But once I started, I kind of waffled a bit, like, And come January of 2021, he said, you're just playing around. You're not serious. And I thought, I'll get serious. You don't dare me. I'm one of those horrible. I always tell people, if you want me to do something, dare me. So I did my first competition in March of 21. I did a second competition in July to just get stage presence. And by North Americans was the first week of September, first weekend of September.
Yeah. It's always Labor Day weekend. Yeah.
I won 2 pro cards at North Americans. So
And in what height? And I'm assuming it was 35 and 40,
I
but what
was
height are we?
masters. I was masters 35 and 40.
Okay.
Yeah, 35 and
Nice.
40. Yeah.
So then you did your pro debut the next year, or did you do one immediately
No,
after?
I did my pro debut that November at
Okay.
Atlantic Coast in Fort Lauderdale. Here.
And
Yeah.
how'd that go?
Um, I I won masters and I placed top 10 in the open.
That's
And
fantastic.
it's funny because I didn't want to do the open.
Oh,
After winning
really?
pro card in masters, I thought I would just always be a masters athlete. And Jamie had this way of like, oh, if you're gonna be there already, might as well. And and I gave it some thought, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be there already, so I may as well. And I was actually shocked that I placed top 10. I think I placed 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
And
great.
that actually gave me the confidence to try open, you know, the
Again.
following year in 2022. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
And Mo and Sandy actually were the ones who actually boosted my confidence and said, listen, because we saw you in the Masters and we had a chance to look over your physique, we knew when it came to the open, yes, we want to see her lined up against this person, compare you with that person. And that
Mm-hmm.
gave me the confidence to keep going in the open as well.
That's great. Yeah. So how old are you? I know you're over 40, but what is
I
your
am
exact?
over 40, but I don't ever really say my age.
Oh, okay.
I'm mid 40s. I'm mid 40s. I'm gonna
Okay.
grab a charger. Give me 1 second.
You're good.
Tell me the charger.
So
Sorry about that, Emmy.
that's okay. So as far as your 2022 season, how many shows did you do that year?
So as far as my 2022 season, I did, I think, 4 or 5 shows. Let's
Okay.
see. 2022, I started with the North Americans. I started with North Carolina, Charlotte Pro. I did Charlotte, Louisiana, Puerto Rico, and I did one more in there. I can't remember. So I think I did four, a total of four.
And when did you start placing in open?
I started placing in open in the top 10 last year, in the top 5 this year.
Okay. So what's been your best open placement that you've had?
5th,
Okay. And where was that at?
Clash. That was
Okay.
at Clash this year.
Okay.
Twice. Clash and Girl Power. So
Okay.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I actually watched that one live. So yeah, very cool. So let's pivot and kind of talk about a couple of questions that I had from listeners. So one of the questions was, if you had to pick your top 3 foods that would help you get through a long prep, like what are your favorite foods that you look forward to during your preps? That your go-tos, I guess.
So Flavor Gang's bowl of games, cream of rice. I
Okay.
have that every morning for breakfast.
I've never heard of that.
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard of
Oh
that.
my gosh, crackberry will change your life.
So what is it's a cream of rice,
So
but
it's
does it
cream
have
of
something else
rice,
in it?
but it's high in protein.
Okay.
Sorry, high in carbs. So
Uh-huh.
it does have a little bit of protein in it, but it tastes like a dessert, which is
Okay.
funny because I'm not a dessert person. I'm more of a savory person, but
Uh-huh.
it's so good. I promise you, you have to try it. You have
What's it flavored with? Is it with stevia or Splenda or what?
It's flavored, I believe, with stevia and like monk fruit,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
But it's so good.
So the
Crackberry
brand's
birthday cake.
crackberry or birthday cake. Okay, this sounds so good. All right, so that was a good first
So
one.
that's one. Usually when I'm on prep, I have the same meal 4 times a day, which
Okay.
is trifecta pulled chicken with rice. But the one ingredient that I can't live without is Trader Joe's everything
The
bagels.
bagel seasoning. Yeah. That's a good seasoning. So are you sponsored by Trifecta or do you just use it for the convenience since you're such a busy
So they sponsor the athletes of Fit Body Fusion, the coaches. So
oh,
it is
okay.
a sponsorship. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a Fit Body Fusion coach, you're an ICU nurse. We just talked offline about how many clinical hours you're doing. So how do you juggle all of that? Because I think also you haven't mentioned about your family.
A
But
mom
if
of
I
3.
think you're a single mom, right? Yeah. So single mom of 3.
Yes.
How do you manage all of that? What are some tips on just time management in general?
So organization is key. It might sound a little bit boring and regimented, but my schedule is pretty much like the same. Because I have kids, I know how to be flexible, but I wake up at the same time every day. And everything flows. I know that before my kids get up from 5, I have between 5:30 to 7, because I usually wake them up at 7 to get ready for school, right?
Okay.
So I have between that time to check on things with clients, to return messages, emails, all of that stuff that's for me. And then once I take them to school, they go to school at 8 o'clock. In between that time, I can get the rest of my client check-ins done. I can get all of my workouts in. I can get stuff prepared groceries done. I won't lie, I do use Instacart a lot.
Yeah,
I'm a
that's smart.
believer in making life simple, work
Yes,
harder, not harder. So I do use
exactly.
Instacart and things like that a lot. And then once I pick them up, they have extracurricular activities after school. So once I pick them up at like 5:30 in the evening, it's their time. So they get half an hour to relax, watch TV or iPad, and then homeworks from 6 to 7, 7 to 8. It's bath time, dinner time, 8 o'clock. It's bedtime, no later than 8:30. So, well, my 4-year-old gets away with being a little bit later, you know, because she's cute. They're all cute, but so everything's kind of on a schedule for me. It's very, very regimented.
So you have a 4-year-old, and what are the other two
I have
ages?
a 4-year-old, I have 8-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Okay. So is the 4-year-old in preschool when she or he or she goes to
She's
school?
she's actually in pre-K right now. So she's in the same school as them. It's like
Oh, that's
one,
nice.
yeah. So I prefer that so that they can like check on each other and just kind of cast an eye on each other kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know
So
that it will always be like that.
when do you get your like your nurse practitioner stuff in, and then also
So my nurse practitioner, the 250 hours, I do it on my time. I try to do it when I don't have them. So every other weekend, their
okay,
father, their father has them. And that's when I try to get my hours in.
okay.
There have been random times where I will do it during the day when they're at school. I have an amazing, amazing babysitter who has been with us for a long time, and she will
Hmm.
pick them up when they're done with their aftercare and stay with them, because a lot of times if I go into the hospital, I have to be there at least 8 to 12 hours, you know, um,
Hmm.
to log 8 to 12 hours. So she'll pick them up from aftercare and bring them home. And I'll tell her there's this in the freezer or there's this in the fridge left over, just, heat it up until I get there at 7:30. So they
Yeah.
say it's a village. I luckily have one. I have a little person in my village, but she works. She works.
That's awesome. So when you, how many, like how many hours does it take for you to like get your cardio done and your weight training and all that?
So it depends. It depends on where I am in prep and
Hmm.
kind of whether we're reversing into a show or not, right?
Okay.
So I usually don't have a lot of cardio. I kind of tend to stay lean throughout the year. And it's not because I forcefully stay lean. Prior to competing, I
Hmm.
weighed 110 pounds.
Oh, wow. How tall are you?
I'm 5 3/4, but we could say 5'1". Be okay
Okay.
with one, right? So prior to competing, I weighed 110 pounds and my
Okay.
stage weight is 111.
Okay. Okay.
So I've always kind of been this way.
Mhm.
So even in off season, I'll get up to like 114, 115, when I'm packing on the beef pho with lots of sodium. But I don't vary much. So my cardio is usually kind of minimal. Actually, there's times when Jamie's like, don't move. I'm like burning through
Burning
food
too much.
so much, right? So I'll send her a picture of a sloth. But a lot of times, sometimes going into a show, I'll start off with 15 minutes of cardio, maybe 3 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And then by the time we're getting into the show, she's like, do not move. Like literally, just sit there and eat.
So I imagine your macros are pretty high. You
Yeah. Yeah.
have
I've
pretty high.
actually reversed into shows at like 2,800.
Wow.
Yeah. 2,860. Yeah. Yeah.
You're you're making everybody jealous right now.
I know. Usually I'm backstage and people are like, why are you eating? Does Jamie know you're eating? I'm like, she's the one telling me to eat. So
And have you always done macros, or have you ever done meal plan, and which do you
my
prefer?
my very, very first coach, prior to Jamie. So I only switched to Jamie just before I went into North Americans. My first coach was meal plans.
Okay.
Which for me actually was easier. I'll tell you, the hardest transition for me was going from a meal plan to macros, because
Okay.
I felt like with my busy life, it was easier right? For
Because you didn't
somebody,
have to think about it or calculate it.
I didn't have to think about it. And somebody was just telling me, you eat this, you eat this, you eat this. These are your high days, these are your low days. Like it was all set. And when I remember the biggest struggle I had was switching over to macros, because when I switched over, and I mean, she did send me a lot of material to read and I looked it up on YouTube, but I'm that type of person. When you give me choices, I'm like, you know, it happens even when I go to the store. I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding. I'll get in the store. I knew exactly what I was going for. But then when I see the choices, I'm like a deer in headlights. I'm just like, I can't make a decision. So I preferred meal plans for a while. And now that I'm used to macros, and obviously I've become friends with more athletes and pros, and they'll share tips, and this is what I do, or this is how I do it, and this is what I consume, or you know what I mean? You learn and you figure it out.
So
So
what would you say, like for somebody that's just starting out with macros, what would be like the top 5 things that you would say would be helpful for them to transition if they've been on a meal plan, or what were some things that you found helpful that you learned from other pros and things?
so one of the things I learned actually that worked particularly well for me to transform my physique this year was, while I'm in prep, I've pretty much stuck to the same thing. So once I found a
Okay.
protein, you know, last year I ate tilapia, I ate chicken, sometimes I ate beef, I ate so many different things, right?
Hmm.
I was more concerned about closing out my macros than consistently eating the same thing. This,
Okay.
and I think you can see the difference in my physique this year. I've literally ate the same thing, and I feel like my body has become a machine and knows how to break that down, so it does so much more efficiently, right?
Okay.
So I would say to somebody, figure out what works with your body and what your body responds to. It was a learning curve, because there were days that I ate the chicken and I would wake up and take tons of pictures to see what I looked like, and then the next day I ate turkey, lean turkey. And then I figured out, okay, there's a little bit more sodium in the chicken, and I kind of actually fill out and look better with the chicken than I do with the turkey, the 99% turkey.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized I look better with the turkey that has a little bit more fat than the 99% lean turkey, because I'm already really lean. So it's
Yeah.
kind of playing with things. And once you find that recipe of what works for you, sticking to it, but you also have to kind of change your mental diet in order to stick with it and be disciplined. Um, so that would be a big tip I would tell anybody starting out with macros, and just read a lot about it, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of people get confused. Do I measure raw? Do I measure cooked? You can do both in the
Right.
MyFitnessPal app, right? But figure out which one you're going to use and stick to it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, it's
So
about consistency. I have athletes that ask me that too. They're like, should I be, I've been measuring it or, cooked. And I'm like, well, if that's the way you're looking up in my fitness pal, if that's the way you're doing it, keep doing that. Don't try to track raw and try to
yep,
weigh it raw and stuff like
right.
that.
Yep.
So very good advice. Any tips on, like, did you ever have to kind of think about your fiber with your macros being so high? You probably don't have to worry about that with your carb choices and things like that.
My fiber I didn't have to really worry about until like this year, because we got so high. Usually I used to stay on the lower 2000 end, and then as my body just kept burning and burning and burning,
Hmm.
and my calories kept going up almost to 3000, I started realizing, okay, I needed to intake more fiber than the regular 25 grams of fiber, right?
Hmm.
So my fiber wasn't really an issue. My big problem is sodium, man. I'm not gonna lie. I love sodium.
Does it make you kind of retain a little bit or make you puffy if you have too much?
Oh yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
do you manipulate that during peak week, or is there a special
So
protocol you follow?
we do manipulate it during peak week. So when I'm not in peak week, one of my celebratory meal
Hmm.
is Vietnamese beef pho, which is a soup, right?
Okay.
High in sodium.
Yeah.
However, we know one bowl usually makes me gain 6 to 7 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
so worth it. Um, so usually, obviously, I'll get one bowl maybe
Mhm.
after a show. And then we know it's going to take about 3 days for that sodium. Once I get back to drinking all the water, I should 3 days for that sodium to like kind of come off of me.
Yeah.
So we know then I'm back to baseline. So yeah, we do manipulate sodium. And once I'm in peak, we keep sodium. Like I said, I eat the same 4 meals all throughout the day. My breakfast is the exact same, and then my other 4 meals are the exact same. So it's the exact same sodium in each meal as well. You
Yeah.
know,
So your body gets used to it.
yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense. Is there any other things that are different about peak week that you have to watch or that you think that are different protocols than the average person?
Well, other than I think for me, sometimes in peak week, um, my digestion is so like fast a lot of the time that my sleeping is off. So what we found is as I get closer into a show, my sleep suffers.
Okay.
Maybe anxiety, maybe nerves, maybe so many things. So I remember actually this year we were going into a show and we just couldn't get me to sleep more than 6 hours. And I was like, man, I know my body, I know what's gonna happen. Night before the show, I'm gonna get a really good sleep and my weight's gonna just tank. And sure enough, I think it was going into girl power. I had only been sleeping 5 to 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours. And Jamie kept saying, you need to hit 7 or 8. You
Hmm.
need to 7 or 8. And the night before the show, I slept 9 hours and I woke up 4 pounds lighter. And
Oh,
we're like,
wow.
oh,
So did you have to carb load really heavily that morning?
yep, we sure did.
Okay.
But that's the only unpredictable thing really with me. So it's like, even in Romania, we were on a time difference and
Hmm.
sleep was suffering because I kept trying to stay up till midnight to talk to my girls, to FaceTime with them,
Yeah.
got home from school. Um, and I kept saying to myself every night, I kept saying to them, I may not call you guys tomorrow night because mom needs to catch up on sleep, but I missed them so much that the next night I would, and the next night I would. And I had to literally force myself Saturday night. I turned off my phone, I turned off everything, and I literally went to bed at like 7 o'clock in Romania. And we got the drop that we needed. But luckily, it wasn't a huge drop, right? So it was like a two
Right.
pound, which was just right within where we could manipulate it with a little bit of rice cakes and honey and salt and.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So as far as your like experience there in Romania, did you get to enjoy the city or did you get to go around in Europe or did you just kind of keep it vanilla all week just to kind of pull off water and
So
kind of like pull back on training or
I think one of the things about me is when I'm all in to something,
Mhm.
I'm I'm all in,
Yeah.
right? So I had already set my mindset before I left. I mean, I have a friend who's Romanian. She competes here and she's like, you got to go
Oh, wow.
here and you got to go there and you got to see this. My mindset was, I have this opportunity to do this once in a lifetime thing that I didn't
Hmm.
think I would get the chance to do. So I'm going to put everything into it. That is my priority. And if afterwards I'm able to do things, that's secondary. But
Yeah.
my goal, my priority is eyes on the prize. So when I
Yes.
got to Romania, it was eat, sleep, gym. I didn't hang out in the lobby bar. I
Yeah.
didn't go out to dinner or sightsee like some of the other competitors. And did it get lonely? Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. Competitors, athletes were texting me, hey, we're gonna go to the mall. Hey, we're gonna go sightsee this in the old city district. You wanna go? No, I have to check in. I have to take photos. My next meal is at this time. And another time I'll go to Romania, if God wills. But this is why I'm here this time, and I'm gonna stick to the plan. But I've always been that type of person. So I
Yeah.
didn't get to sightsee. I did get to walk the park in front of the hotel the night before our competition. because I had cardio left to do, light walking,
Uh-huh.
getting
So
the
you got
blood
outside.
circulating. And so I went outside and I did my walk, and literally I was timing everything. And then
And
went
you're
back.
back in.
Yep, yep, yep,
So,
yep.
if you don't mind answering this, I know it's online and it's probably public information, but what was the prize money like for this show?
So the first place, Jessica won $10,000.
Okay.
Second was 5,000, and I believe third place was 2,000 or 3,000. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
fourth and fifth didn't get prize money.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
It was kind of just first, second, and third for all of the divisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as Masters shows go, do you find that I know I've heard from different promoters kind of charge the IFBB pros that are masters to, which, as a pro, that's kind of one of the perks is that you don't have to pay entry fees. But I know that that's been the case for some people. Like I know Joe Pashkula does not charge. Does he give out prize money for the masters
He
too?
does. He
That's
does. So
good.
it's actually funny that you're bringing this up because um I love being a masters athlete. I love being an ambassador for other masters athletes. It's actually kind of endearing when people are like, "Oh my gosh, and I follow your journey, and I have kids, and I want to be able to do this."
Hmm.
And one of the things that I struggle with, because I would love to affect change, but I just don't know how to, is that there are competitions where masters, actually Joe's competition is actually the only competition that I know of where masters do not pay to compete at the
Wow.
moment, right?
Okay.
Because it was an eye opener once I won my pro cards, right, in masters, to then find out you're now an IFBB pro, but because you're a masters IFBB pro, you still have to pay to compete. But if I'm in the open, I don't have to pay to compete. So
Mhm.
it's kind of towing that line. Am I consider Do you consider me a pro, or am I not a pro? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that it's been like, why is this there? Like, how can we as masters and promoters come together and think of a way that honors the masters athlete,
Hmm.
but still works for the promoter? Because I understand that it is a show and they have to make money and all of this stuff,
Hmm.
right? Um, but I've had a lot of masters athletes reach out to me and say, "How come we have to pay to compete?" And the answer is always, "I don't know, babe. Like it is what it is." But I'm hoping that as one promoter starts eliminating it, that
Hmm.
it grows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to Sandy Williams, because I don't know if you know this or if she's ever mentioned it, but she actually put up the prize money for Clash.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, it's
That's amazing.
amazing, amazing. It shows her belief in us.
Yeah. And it's hard too because I know as pros, like for example, you winning 5,000 out of 20, you got second place out of 21 athletes. Like I know it was probably expensive to go to Europe and to stay there for a week. And if that's not getting paid for, like travel does get paid for with the Olympia with the Arnold. So um I can imagine that would be a challenging just because even though you have like I'm sure sponsors for your suit and like different items, it's like you're basically most prize money for most pros, even in the open, is just going towards their expenses to cover it
Yeah.
in a way. Unless you win the actual Open Olympia, then that's like a significant salary,
And
I
this
guess you would say.
this did just cover my expenses,
Yeah,
honestly, you
yeah,
know. Um,
yeah,
but it
but
is what it is. And like I said, hopefully as time goes on, more promoters, one, add masters divisions, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's my hope for this year. And I hoped Masters Olympia into existence. At least I like to think so. So I'm gonna keep hoping for that. And I hope that we can come together and figure out a way to eliminate, that I mean, it's as expensive as over $200,
Yeah.
$250 to enter some competition. So
Yeah, that's like an NPC card cost. And you pay 300 to get your pro
yeah,
card renewed, right? Or something near that.
close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the challenges that may occur if somebody's masters, because I'm masters as well. I'm 43. And I know I have a lot of clients that are masters, and we have a little bit of different, things that, if we've had kids, dealing with stretch marks, as we mature, our skin, because of the lack of estrogen, becomes like thinner, and it can, be wrinkly and things like that. So what are some things as a masters competitor? What are some tips that you would give competitors? Because that is part of the aesthetic of what you look like, skin tone, your beauty, all of that comes into play when it comes into bikini. It's not just the balance and like the criteria is, there's
Yeah.
so many things, like as far as that have to be in place to, have that perfect look. So
Yeah.
what are some tips that you have? Are there any kind of skin tricks that you do? Because you've had 3 children. So I just wonder if
Botox.
Botox. Okay.
I mean, I'll be honest. I've had Botox for
Okay.
like the last 2 years.
Okay.
Um, I did try filler for the first time going
Okay.
into Masters. So I don't know that I'll do it again because it hurt.
Oh,
But
really?
it did. Well, it hurt
Okay.
me. It was painful. Some people have said they've never had any pain with it. I don't know. But I always tell I have a few masters clients and they're always worried, right? Oh, I'm getting on stage. I don't want to do the open because it's a bunch of 20-year-olds or girls that are half my age.
Uh-huh.
And I tell them, look, at the end of the day, um, we're masters athletes. You're not gonna have the body of a 20-year-old or anything like that. We've had stretch marks and skin elasticities going and all of that stuff. But you need to have a regimen, right? To keep yourself, because let's face it, this sport, the world is about a youthful appearance, maintaining youth, the fountain of youth, living forever. So do you want to have a good skin regimen? Absolutely. Are stretch marks going to keep you from placing well? Maybe when it comes down to the tiniest detail, but I've seen people with stretch marks win,
Hmm.
right? So that's not it's not a disqualifying qualifying criteria. But do you want to keep yourself as youthful as possible? And that includes mentally, right? Not just your appearance and how you speak, how you carry yourself, right? If you're always complaining and you're always down and always thinking about how old you are compared to the other girls, you're already limiting yourself,
Hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
always tell people, let's work with what we have that works for us, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, as a athlete, as an ambassador, you've had kids. Now you're a warrior, you're in your 40s or older, you have life experience and wisdom, right? So
Yeah.
I try to always encourage my ladies on the more positive aspects than just looking at the aesthetic things that are going to be negatives. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what are some other, just if you were to give advice, like as far as your top couple of moments where you just felt like were really big learning curves when it because you're fairly new to the sport, um, which you've had such an awesome career. You've done how many shows now in the last
I've lost count. And that's funny to say. I've done, including Masters O this year, I've done 4. And then I
Okay.
did about 4 or 5 last year. And then I did 4 the year that I turned pro. So
So yeah, a lot
yeah.
in just those 3 years. So what would be, if you were to talk to your former self, when you were first about to do your competition, like what advice would you have given to yourself that now that you've done these competitions, where you're like, oh man, I wish I would have started doing this back then. Um, what would be something that you would say for that,
Um,
that you've
the
learned from?
the first thing I would have told myself is to face the fear of being in the open. You
Okay.
can't grow unless you size yourself up against competition. It's sad to say, right? But
Yeah.
the truth is, you can't get better unless you're up against the best.
Yeah.
So get over that fear of being in the open. Get over the macros meal plan transition that I fought for quite some time. Um, and what else would I tell my younger self in this sport? To just apply yourself sooner.
Okay.
I mean, I made a lot of excuses early on, not excuses like I can't do this, but in my head, oh, but I'll never place there because, oh, but I'll never, they'll see my age. I'm a mom. So many things that I
Limiting beliefs.
internalized, limiting beliefs that were, when you step on stage, they don't know. They may know a tidbit about you. And of course, as you keep competing, they'll learn more about you. But we have our own limiting beliefs that limit us more than what is projected on us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember also in that interview that I was listening to, this was before you knew that the Olympia for Masters was in existence. I remember there was some sort of strategy that you were starting to think like it might be hurting you to be competing as a pro in the Masters, because the judges might take that like as a negative.
Yeah.
Are you still in that belief that, because I've seen you kind of cross over, now that so what is your current thought on the strategy when it comes to a Masters competitor only competing in the Open, if their goal is to go to the Olympia and all that?
I actually don't have that limiting belief anymore.
Okay.
So I did have that belief last year that I looked like a Masters and there was no way that I would do well in the Open. This was my view of myself. Um, I felt that Masters should probably just stick to Masters, to be fair. And then I took a chance and I started competing in the Open. And I started realizing that a lot of my mental diet was what was restricting me, not what was physically showing on the outside. And so now I'm of the opinion, do it, try it. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that maybe you don't place well, but you're going to get the feedback and you work on the feedback, which is exactly what I did. I got to a point with Jamie where I think she just got tired of me saying, oh, I'm too old. They're going to know that I'm a Masters when I step out in the Open. I look like a master. I look like a mom, and she just had enough. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it was just
Yeah.
like, just try it. Just try it and let's see what the feedback is. And not once was the feedback ever, you need to look a little bit more hip, or we wish you came out looking a little bit more youthful. That was never, ever the feedback. And then I started realizing, oh my gosh, I'm just another girl on that stage when I step out. And so I started applying the feedback. And I said to myself, let's run an experiment. If the feedback is come with fuller glutes, let's come with fuller glutes and see if they change their mind and give me a different feedback why I wasn't placed well or something.
Uh-huh.
No, I came with fuller glutes and I placed better. I'm with a little
Awesome.
bit more upper body. Came with a little bit more upper body and I placed better. So a
Yeah.
lot of times, a lot of people like to blame something. And I was in that camp of blaming everything about me. And sometimes you need somebody to just pull you up and be like, mm.
Yeah. That's good that you have a coach that knows and she's experienced with those kind of things. So what was your feedback after the Olympia Masters? I know it's just recently, so I didn't know if you got a chance to get it right after.
We did. The very next day, I asked her to reach out and get my feedback. It took a little
Uh-huh.
bit to come back, but my feedback was fuller glutes.
Okay. Who is your head judge over there?
So the head judge was Steve Weinberg,
Okay.
which I've always wanted to step in front of him, and I did at Tampa Pro, and that's actually one of the reasons I did Tampa Pro. So we had Steve Weinberg, Tim Gardner, Tarek Elgundi,
Yep.
I can't pronounce her name, Barantes, in Idilis Barantes, and Emilio Rodriguez.
Okay.
So yeah.
Very nice. Well, is there anything that I haven't, you've given us so many golden nuggets, so I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would want to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Um, I always like to share with like newcomers to the sport, enjoy the ride. Yeah, it's great to be focused. Yes, it's great to have a goal. But once you get backstage, please remember all the work is done. So once your heels hit that stage, have some fun. You might as well. You've been starving, unless you like me, weren't starving, but
Exactly.
going into this process, you've been sacrificing, you've been missing out events with your family and friends. So that's your moment to shine, go do that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of this. If anyone wanted to reach out to you and, ask you some questions or just thank you for being on the podcast, or tag you on their story, how could they get a hold of you? And I'll put stuff in the show notes too.
I'm on Instagram at JA9Fit. That's JA and the number 9Fit. Or they can reach me at Janine at fitbodyfusion.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And listeners, as always, if you would like to apply for the team, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the get started button. You can find us on Instagram at Prep Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini. So be sure to, if you listen and you loved it, make sure you send Janine some love and let her know how much you appreciate her coming on today. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Emmy.